Okay.
You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, 8 to 10 a.m., Wednesday through Sunday. You can see our Facebook shows on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Network pages, with our platforms also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, follow, comment, and share, and also subscribe when possible. Check out the website at macandjacksports.com, called Mac's Insiders for information on weekly guests, articles, team, public relations updates, a list of shows on Northeast Streaming Sports, our great sponsors with links to their products and services. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, a legendary boxing writer and former president of the National Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mac. Taking a look at our guest list today makes it a very good morning.
Oh, it's going to be crazy. And we're going to bring our first guest up right away, Jack. It's one of our favorite guests from Philly, a Philly sports guy, Jamie Paggs. Good morning, Jamie. How you doing?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good morning.
Not too bad. Not too bad. For all of you who don't know, Paggs has the Philly Guys Sports Show. In fact, they'll have 3 soon coming up on Northeast Streaming Sports. And he was the first one to be shared over in the United Kingdom with our new partners over there at Ford B. So great to have you on, Paggs. And we're going to get right to it. We're going to get to some of the Philly sports. And we're going to go over the Flyers first. They're in first place at 3-1, bounced back to take the second game from Buffalo, 3-0. Goals from Hayes, Voracek, and Travis Kay in a perfect game from their goalie, Elliott, with 40 saves. What do you think about that, Pat?
So there's a few things that I think. I obviously it was great to see them bounce back after losing 6-1, which, it seems like that when they take nights off, they really take nights off. And I could imagine that afterwards, Alain Vigneault was not real happy, and I wouldn't have wanted to be a player in that locker room at the end of that game because he just doesn't like when they take those types of nights off. But the one thing that I've noticed since last season, the difference is, obviously, it's early in the season, but last year they were one of the best teams in the league with shots against. And this year, they're one of the worst. I mean, they've been averaging over 30 shots a game. And the giveaways in the zone are still plaguing them. And those are the things that I happen to see. It's great that you win games early in the season because the games that you win early in the season equate to lots of points at the end of the season. And that's going to be important to get the number 1 or number 2 seed, specifically because this is going to be a very unique year when it comes into playoffs. But they have to start to solve these problems now. The fact that the Buffalo Sabres are not a very good team. They're scrappy and they're young, but to give up 40 shots, they average, I think, somewhere around 38, 39 shots a game between these last 2 games. And that shouldn't happen.
So you're looking for that defense to improve more. Maybe trapping, maybe forechecking off the rip, maybe a little bit more physical. Is that what you're saying, Pax?
Well, something like that. I mean, obviously, Couturier being out with that injury, he's got one of those injuries where the rib became dislodged from the chest. I don't know. It sounded really painful. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. And when you lose a Selke, candidate, and he's probably their most defensive offensiveman. That's, the centerman who's able to go up against the first line and second lines all of the time. You lose somebody like that, all of a sudden things change. And that loss really showed these last two games. And I mean, now they have to figure out the best way because they're going up against Boston for a couple of days, a couple of games, and that's going to be a real big test for them to see if they can overcome that loss.
Pax, isn't it a little too early to be concerned because of the pandemic, we're not having a normal preseason. There's a shortened schedule. So in reality, these early games are like preseason games.
Yes and no. I think that these are the times where you start to see the problems that you have and fix them so that when you get to the end of the season, they're not problems anymore. They are, the challenges have been met and faced, and you move forward so that you could become a championship caliber team. I still feel like that everything's going to still go through Tampa Bay. That Tampa Bay is going to be the team to beat, and the Flyers have got to get their game higher if they're going to be able to, really compete against them, because everybody else, like the Islanders are going to be a good team this year. Every one of these games are worth 4 points. Yeah. So it's important to start to make those changes now so that when you get to the end of the season, you're hitting on all cylinders.
Great point. So again, you guys are in first over there, which is something to be said about that, especially I think the division is going to be a little bit tougher this year all the way around. So let's turn to the 76ers. They're 9-5. They're tied with the Bucks for second, one game behind the Celtics. With the Nets making their move, I mean, they just won 4 in a row. They lost to the Grizzlies last game by 2. They're playing the Celtics tonight. But you guys have Embiid coming back, Seth Curry coming back in the lineup, and you will see the 76ers at full strength where the Celtics don't have Jason Tatum tonight playing.
It's an interesting snafu. It's an interesting snafu where it's Philly versus Boston week, that we play Boston twice, Sixers back-to-back, and then the Flyers also back-to-back. So I love the fact that the schedule makers did this. It's Philly versus Boston, for a 4-round fight. It's the Sixers are 7-0 when they're at full strength. And I think that's going to really come to play to say that them with Seth Curry back. Seth Curry really made a big difference, missing him. And now I know the COVID protocols have really kind of hurt a lot of different teams, and they're continuing to hurt the Celtics here. But I kind of expect that the Sixers are going to come out really strong and take it to Boston right away. And what a difference a week makes. I mean, last week we were talking about the problems with the Nets. All of a sudden, now they got James Harden, and now they're the class of the East, that everything's going to go through Brooklyn.
Was there disappointment in Philadelphia that they didn't get James Harden? And there was talk that Ben Simmons was on the table. And are there any repercussions? Would Ben Simmons maybe be a little annoyed that just the idea that the Sixers maybe would have traded him?
Well, it's funny because as the rim turns happened around here, where it seemed like the ownership of the Houston called Ben Simmons and says, "Hey, pack your bags, you are traded." So it was very interesting, and I think that was done. That there was a little bit of conniving here, where they actually tried to do something like this, where it was not necessarily tampering, but it was just putting bugs in people's heads because they weren't real happy with our president now coming here and leaving Houston. So this was kind of done maliciously, which is interesting to me that there's that type of drama that happens.
But that is tampering. If a deal hadn't been made and Houston contacted Ben Simmons, I mean, I'm astounded by that.
When I heard that, I found it very interesting. I was like, how can they do that and make those types of claims? But they said that it was a done deal just about, and then Brooklyn came over the top with trading the picks from 2035 on down. So it's like they're not going to have a first round pick for, it seems like, 10 years. But it's that I found that really funny, almost, that it was like, oh wow, how about that? Like, it's go figure that.
Well, they're going to have to swap picks. They'll just have for 40 years. The worst of over the next 8-9 years, Houston will have the right to swap every other year.
Well, so, and like I said, Houston got everything that they needed to get for Harden. I mean, and they were trying to get the world, and they got it. and the Nets gave up the world. So it'll be interesting to see if the Nets are going to be able to take it, and actually, if Harden's going to be the answer, because he hasn't been the answer in Houston or in Oklahoma City. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to now be able to do it in the East.
It's a very good point because, I thought that them just getting Durant, never mind Kyrie and never mind Harden, just getting Durant alone on that strong young team would have elevated them into the mix for the East title. But Kyrie, I heard, said he's sorry to the fans and he's coming back. So you're going to always have that little roller coaster over there with the Nets, no matter what happens. And I think that a lot's going to have to do with, different teams' chemistries in the end, because that's really how you win the games. Talent's one thing, chemistry is another. So let's talk about Simmons for a minute, because Jack brought it up and so did you. There's questions about his offensive performance right now. Of course, he's down a little bit. But Doc restated his opinion again. He said he wasn't worried about his points per game. He felt he's a unique player, that he's elite defensively. He can rebound. He can drive. He can dish the ball. He can drive to the basket like some of the top forwards, or he played guard a little bit in the last couple games. But he can drive to the basket, get some fouls, and he doesn't really care if he shoots 50 or 52%. What are your thoughts on that, Pags? Do you think that, they got to improve his shooting? There's no doubt about it. There's got to be something they got to do about that. But isn't he right that this guy is a unique player in the league, one of the unique ones anyway, defensively, again, dishing and getting those rebounds?
Well, and I agree with that. So it's funny when there's a 4-tool guy. You always hear about, they have got all 5 tools. He's a 4-tool. And he excels at those 4 tools. And it's funny that the 5th tool is shooting. So that he has
right.
the problems with that one. And you don't hear that about basketball players. There's been a lot of talk where he has been very similar to Iguodala.
Right.
And that Iguodala went over there and to Golden State and won championships, wound up being an MVP in the finals. And those types of things are necessary for a team. So the fact that he's one of the best defenders in the league is going to be important if they're going to go over and cross over that threshold and become a championship team. I think that they're going to wind up being the team that comes out of the East, even with Brooklyn making those changes. That being said, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that he has not been able to up his game and up his shooting at all, and that he's still hesitant to take a 10-footer. And I think the fans wouldn't even care if he missed it. It's just the fact that he's hesitant to take it, and he's always more dishing it off rather than taking those shots. I think that in Philadelphia fans' eyes, that's always going to be an issue. And because of that, that's always going to put him on the trade block. But I don't think it's necessary. Like I said, you need guys to be able to defend. And when he's out there on the court, they obviously the offense of the other team doesn't do as well. And that's going to be important when you get into the playoffs, because defense always wins championships, not offense.
Very good points. So let's go over to the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, we all know you're trying to get a new coach, a head coach in there. And, I'm not surprised that they've interviewed their 14th or candidate. I think it's up near there anyway, Pags.
Yeah, that's why I'm on early today, because I have my interview coming up. I have to go down to Florida to go interview with Jeff Lurie here by 2:00. So I have to catch that flight.
That's beautiful. No, listen, a lot of people are saying, the word is that really the person that got him fired was Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz went to management. He has the huge contract that they signed. He's supposed to be the franchise quarterback, and they're telling these coaches that are interviewing that Carson Wentz is going to be your starting quarterback, from what I hear. And how you as a coach, you come in, you want to take control of the team first of all. It's your team. I know it's they're owned by the owners and they're ran by the general manager, but you want to put your stamp on a team. You want to be the one that sets the table. And if somebody's telling you, what you got to do when you first walk through the door, that makes it a little unappealing, if you know what I'm saying.
I do. And I find that, so first off, no one really knows. It's all these reports are coming out about a lot of different things. I mean, I was listening today where they were talking about how Doug Peterson went for his first exit interview of the season and kind of tried to lay down the law. And, ultimately it made a second exit interview where he kind of walked in and says, I'm going to walk away from this now. So it's interesting that it feels a little haphazard. The fact that they have to go through 14 people to figure out whether there's a head coach. And I think that by going through all of these people, they're interviewing a lot of people, mostly because there's a little bit of due diligence, but that they're still looking to talk to their guy, who I think is Bieniemy. You know what I mean? I believe that that's who they're targeting, and the reason why they're holding off and they keep interviewing people is because they're waiting to be able to talk to him first and foremost. And in the meantime, rather than look like they're just sitting around waiting on him, they keep bringing people in. So I think that you're going to see about 20 people finally go in and out the doors until they get the guy that they want to talk to. And then it's going to be between Josh McDaniels and Eric Bieniemy. And I believe that it's Bieniemy that they really want, because they have been really big on going by the Andy Reid playbook. And everybody has been a disciple of Andy Reid. And, Josh McDaniels is a disciple of Belichick, and I don't know that style fits, because Belichick, when you tutelage under Belichick runs the roost there. He's the one in charge. And here it's Howie. And although that there's a lot of question marks about that, Andy runs it over there too. And I believe that Andy still has a lot of say in this franchise. It's funny how that seems to work like that, but I think that he has a lot of influence here, and that's their thing. And they're going to continue to do what it is that has made them successful all of this time, and that's kind of follow the Andy Reid playbook.
You wonder whether Jeff Lurie really plays well, because when a potential coach is looking for destination, for job, he looks at various things. Then the main things he looks at: who's the quarterback? Do they have a franchise quarterback? How good is the owner to the coaches? How stable is the owner? And how much do they pay? And the Eagles don't come off looking too good in the quarterback situation. They come off looking not that good in the ownership situation because of the GM there and the owner. It's a bit dysfunctional. So they're going to look at the contract being offered. And I don't know what Eric Bieniemy is making as Andy Reid's right-hand man, in Kansas City. But if it's life-altering money, he could figure, I'm going to take the Eagle job, get a multi-year deal. The worst that'll happen, I'll get fired, I'll collect my money, I'll be set for the rest of my life anyway. I mean, I do think like that. But any coach with options couldn't find the Eagle job that appealing if there are other options.
I agree with you. My thought is that they were going to have to hire a coach who's going to be taking two steps. In essence, somebody who would be not just a coach when it comes to, but like a special teams coach, that was going to be the one that's going to make the jump up, and not necessarily somebody who's going to take going from offensive coordinator to head coach, because they're going to want a lot more happening.
I definitely agree with that. Folks out there, let me introduce you to Frankie C. He's the newest show out there on Northeast Streaming Sports. He does our Boston coverage along with our his national coverage. I just wanted to bring him on and introduce you. He's in a little late. This segment will end about 8:30 when we have Coach Spencer coming in. But it's good to see you, Frankie. We've been just talking about a little bit of the Philadelphia sports, and you guys got a big game tonight with the 76ers of Boston. You got Tatum's out tonight, Frankie. Tatum will not be playing, and Philadelphia 76ers are, they're right at full strength right now. So what are your thoughts on that?
I see the 76ers obviously going to take the win tonight without Tatum, but I still feel strong with the Sixers. We still got Marcus Smart. and a couple other people. The momentum for the Celtics right now is next man up. We can't hold back and wait for Jason Tatum to get healthy. I do know that he will be back for the next game against the 76ers, which will be Friday night. So, I mean, we can give the 76ers their little win tonight, and we'll come back on Friday and hand them that loss that we were supposed to give them tonight.
There's no chance. It doesn't matter whether Jason was going to be there or not. I always used to think that, well, especially last year and previous years, that coaching was a big part of the way the Celtics won. Coaching he's not going to out coach Doc, so that, last year was a lot different where I felt that coaching played such a big role. I think this year it's also going to play a big role, and they don't have that over top of the Sixers anymore. And I think that that's going to play a really big part in spanking Boston.
Hey,
let me tell you something. You talk about the Celtics, the Sixers, the Nets, the Bucks. The team that would be 5th or 6th seed was the one that went to the finals last year, the Miami Heat, and Jimmy Butler's been out. That's why they've gotten off to such a bad start. So I don't think any of your teams are necessarily going to get into the finals.
Hey, listen, guys. Frankie, first to you. Listen, you break down Boston basketball. What do you mean we give this game to the 76ers? You're supposed to be telling us how Boston's going to beat the 76ers tonight. Not how they're going to give them anything. You step up there with some legit info, and you let the 76ers fans out there know why Boston's going to destroy Philadelphia tonight. You ain't giving them nothing.
Just like a Fugazi Boston fan.
And the reason I say that is because we have so many injuries, and for the injuries that we have out, we literally just lost to the Knicks, and when do you ever see the Boston Celtics lose about 20 points that they did a couple days ago to the Knicks? That's really odd. And we really honestly didn't have nobody in there to even play in the game. We had about, I believe, 7 or 8, maybe even total of 9 people that were bench and starters. So I understand if I do have high hopes that the Celtics are going to walk away with the victory tonight. I even if they don't have their star players, I still do believe that the Sixers will lose. But even if the Celtics can't hang in there tonight because we don't have that much star power or star defense or anything like that. But it's still early in the season. It's okay to give them that first win. We will come back on Friday, and we're definitely gonna dominate on Friday when we have our full strength and our full roster back. And what's mostly important is if we're gonna meet them in the playoffs. We did meet you guys in the playoffs last year, right? Was it Boston and Philly last year in the playoffs?
It was, and it was very unauspicious for us where we got swept out of the playoffs, which I wasn't so surprised about and kind of happy about because I knew that was the end of the coach, and it was time to say goodbye to the coach. And because of that, now we have Doc here, and like I said, I think Doc and Philly do really well.
Yeah, I really do like Doc Rivers in Philadelphia. When I seen that the Philadelphia 76ers are going to pick up Doc Rivers, I knew right there that the 76ers are going to at least make it to the championship round in the Eastern Conference, because we all know that Doc Rivers cannot make it to the finals without the Celtics.
And Doc Rivers had a talented squad with the LA Clippers for a lot of years and couldn't get them to the finals. So let's put it in perspective.
Very good, Jack. Excellent point. And let me tell you both something. When the Knicks by the end of the year get that team together, they're going to beat both your butts. And I'm telling you that straight up. I mean, it's not pie in the sky. After we just got done whooping the Celtics like they were our little brothers, we'll be ready for Philadelphia by the end of the year. And I'm not backing down, Jamie C, from anybody. We talk New York, Boston, and Philly sports. I respect all the teams. I think Philly's strong. I think Celtics are strong. And and the Nets are strong. But believe it or not, this year the Knicks are going to make some noise, and they're going to be taking no hostages. And we don't care who's hurt or who's out, Frankie. That's how we go in New York. All right. So listen, guys, it's been it's been great having the Philly sports guy and Frankie C on, and we got to let you go. And again, folks, check out both of their sites, the Philly sports guy, Frankie C's site over there. They're covering the Boston, and he's covering Philly like no one else does. And when he's not getting kicked out of bars, he does a heck of a job. Frankie, you stay out of the bars. You're too young, okay?
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And hey, listen, get ready to take those L's.
Okay, I will get ready. Take care, guys. We'll see you. We'll see you again. We'll see you next week, Pags.
Thank you guys for having me.
No problem, Frankie. You take care, buddy. Keep working hard.
Take care.
Have a good
All right. Thank you. So there you go, the great Philly sports guy with all his massive followers and all his information about
Mac, when you're saying the Knicks were going to take no prisoners, I mean, I was quiet. You were talking for yourself here. You're not that close to that.
I know. But listen, Jack, I don't back down when we cover things, and we cover the 76ers, we cover the Celtics, we cover the Brooklyn Nets. I think it's I respect them all, and I respect the Knicks, and I think the Knicks have a good young team out there, and they're gonna make some noise this year. Now, whether they beat the 76ers or whoever getting towards the Eastern Conference title, I think that's a little far-fetched. But yeah, it's time to talk trash once in a while, Jack. You know what I'm saying? So, so anyway, Jack, coming up next, folks, within the next few minutes, we'll have Giants defensive line coach, Coach Chaos himself, Coach Sean Spencer from the New York Giants. And we'll tell you some things you may not know about him, about his career. And, of course, we'll cover Giants with him. Great having him on, coming on today. I just got confirmation from him in a message. That's what I was doing a minute ago, Jack. But we got a heck of a show. I mean, after Coach Spencer, then we got Dick Weiss, Hall of Fame columnist, who's been in the business for 40, 50 years. And then after that, for you Jets fans out there, we have the head guy over there at their PR department. He's one of the editors, senior consultants over there, with the big news about, the Jets getting a new head coach. They got 2 first-round draft picks. I mean, we got a lot of things to talk about.
Understandably, on a day like today, we couldn't get anyone from the Mets PR department, understandably.
Right. Yeah. We do have some Mets guests coming up in the next couple of days, Jack. So we're going to get some Mets love in here, too, this week. And it's a very busy week. And just until Coach Spencer comes on, Jack, we do have a couple updates that we weren't able to get to in the beginning. The Mets general manager got fired, Jack.
Yeah, Jared Porter, I mean, it's well documented by now. Him sending a series of text messages to a young lady who was a reporter from another country. It was totally inappropriate. And it saddens me. I mean, some people aren't going to have any sympathy for Jared Porter, and I have zero sympathy, obviously, for what he did. I have sympathy for people in general who ruin their lives over complete nonsense, okay? And this was complete nonsense, complete immaturity of a man who's still young. He was about 30 years old at the time it was done a few years ago. And you think about looking forward, you would hope somewhere down the line he could maybe have a chance at redemption, getting his life back in order, maybe getting another opportunity. The Mets had no choice but to terminate him. No choice at all.
Yeah, I agree.
On that. And the young lady, the thoughts about her, how she was affected, if her career was ruined based on his actions, I'll have less sympathy for him, but we don't know the full story outside of it just being very bad and inappropriate on his part.
I definitely agree. I mean, when you're affecting somebody where they're trying to avoid you and they can't cover what they're supposed to cover, I mean, that's awful. The Blue Jays have signed George Springer, as we've talked about. Big deal for the Blue Jays.
We talked about before the show.
Right.
I can't believe, Mac, they signed George Springer for 6 years, $150 million. That's $25 million a year. And the Yankees just signed DJ LeMayo 6 years for $90 million. That's a $60 million difference, $10 million a year. And LeMayo is on the same level as Springer,
Oh,
if not
easily.
ahead of him. And
Yeah.
I can't believe the bargain the Yankees got in comparison to the Jays. And I think the Jays overpaid on this. And
Well,
you'll
Jack,
see that in the next couple of years.
Jack, backstage right now, we have we're really happy to have a coach that I've followed for a long time. He's from the same area as I am, from Connecticut. He lives in the same area I do. He's an outstanding coach. We're going to talk a little bit not only about him with the Giants, but we're also going to talk a little bit about his career, which we might be able to talk about some fascinating stuff that some people don't know about Coach Spencer. So let's bring him on, Jack. Coach Sean Spencer from the New York Giants. How you doing today, Coach?
What's going on, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
good morning, Coach.
Great. We can hear you great. Coach, again, my assistant producer, Linda, has been in touch with you. Persistent. Isn't she persistent?
Oh, yeah.
She's a persistent person. But getting a hold of you and messaging back and forth and really, we really do know you from before the Giants, even before Penn State,
Right.
when you first started. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that before we get to the Giants. I want the fans and the viewers to know not only the coach, Chaos himself, but a little bit about the man, Sean Spencer. And that's, I approach it a little different than a major network do, instead of just bombarding you with questions and looking for an answer. So, Coach, it started all off, if I'm saying correctly, at Buckley High, if I'm correct. You went to high school there, and you were at the high school with another coach who you seemed to hook up with quite a bit through your career, and you graduated, and that's Coach Mangini, if I'm correct.
Absolutely. Yeah, we went to high school together, myself and Eric. I was a year ahead of Eric. He always seemed like he was an older guy because he was so smart. But then when we graduated, I was like, yeah, wait a minute, Eric, are you graduating too? He's like, no, I got another year left. But he was just so mature at a young age and everything. So we've kept in touch throughout the years. I actually did the internship with him when he was with the Jets, and I was with Hofstra. So that was pretty cool there. And we stay in touch. I bounce ideas off of him in terms of career moves and things like that. So we're still really close.
Yeah, I was surprised. And like I said, since Wesleyan, that's how far back I go with you, Coach. When you and Coach Mangini were together at Wesleyan University coaching. And like you said, I saw where you actually went up there, got your first taste of the NFL, doing an internship up there. And what did that do for you? What did it do for you, Coach? Did that show you anything about how the NFL was running different than college?
Yeah. Well, the one thing is you just kind of sit back and you're doing work. They give you assignments and things just to kind of get you acclimated to the system. But it was more of a learning experience for me in terms of just watching the guys coach, interact with the NFL players, how they schedule practice. You got to sit in on all the meetings, we talk personnel, and things like that. And I think that was that's like a first level class for me. Especially I was really young then. I was that back at Hofstra. So I don't know, that was maybe like year 7 or 8 for me, so wow. It was a while ago. So it was a really good experience. You got to meet guys like Brian Cox and, get in the room with Bob Sutton, and those guys are just talking football. And this, the late Denny Morrison, you just listen to those guys talk, and it was an awesome experience for me.
So, Coach, a lot of folks don't know that you almost got in the NFL years ago. You actually had a interview with the Cleveland Browns when Coach Belichick was their head coach, and that would have brought you in the NFL. I don't know how many years ago. Would it have been like 15 years ago almost? During that interview, are you sorry that you didn't get to coach in the NFL then, or are you glad that you kind of took the longer route and got more experience before you got hired by the Giants?
Well, a couple things happened. Like so basically that was back when Eric was there, and it was really for an internship,
Okay.
and we were really looking for a local guy because it wasn't going to pay a whole bunch. And they were looking for a local guy. This was like right when I was graduating college. So you're right. It was back about 25 years ago. Well, maybe more. Yeah, 25. Let's leave it at that. So yeah, I go back. I never regret anything I did. I feel like I took a great path, and it got me to where I'm at today. That is obviously when things come back like that, it's pretty awesome. You know what I mean? But that was pretty cool. And then actually another time with the Patriots, when Eric was there, I interviewed again, and that was really for a personnel job. That could have turned into a coaching job also. But at that time, it was like I was working at UMass, and believe it or not, it was a pay cut, and I couldn't do it.
Right.
I just had a daughter, and it wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah,
Well,
Coach Spencer, with all these, you had a lot of steps before you got to where you were today. How hard is that on families of coaches to have to constantly relocate job to job until they get to where they want to be?
We have this suitcase that you press a button and it just packs everything up, But no, it's difficult. This move to New Jersey from Penn State was a tough move for my daughter. She was going to be a junior in high school, and I don't take that for granted. I know that was really, really tough on her. I actually told her the other day how proud I was of her for the way she handled it. I know it's tough. It's easy for us. We just say, we're going to the New York Giants, and this is awesome, but it is tough on the family, for sure. I was blessed that I was able to stay at Penn State for 6 years. So, we kind of got spoiled, because up until that point I had moved around. I think I'm like at 10 different stops. I think 10 or 11 different stops.
Wow. So could you bring up Penn State, and this is where you made your mark? I mean, you went over there as defensive. I think it was originally defensive line coach, because you've done a lot of different position coaching, not just defensive line. You've even done running back position drill coaches, from what I know. But this is where you make your mark, coach. You take on the defensive line. Your defense quickly becomes one of the best defenses in the whole national college. The college format. And of course, that's the wrong word, but you get what I'm saying. You guys nationally were ranked almost right away. You became defensive coordinator. You guys are like up in the top 3. You're second in total defense. Your wild dog defensive line is averaging 3.54 sacks per game, which is unbelievable. So, and you actually were named associate head coach of Penn State, if I'm correct, in your last years. So, working at Penn State, Coach, great tradition, with your football. How much did you enjoy that experience over there at Penn State University?
It's funny, how Facebook sometimes shows you like memories, they pop up. So the one popped up today right before this broadcast. It was me standing in front of the gates at Penn State in my first day. And just like with my arms open, just taking a pretty cool picture. And it kind of popped up. And so it's kind of funny that we're talking about it now. That was a tremendous experience for me. Growing up in the Northeast and having an opportunity to coach at Penn State. You watch that blue and white come on the TV all the time. And no names on the jersey and just, bland jerseys, but had iconic meaning to it. And for me to work in that place and in that environment and just go through that stadium and just the great games that I was able to coach, from playing Ohio State and beating them in 2016 and going on to the championship and then winning the Big Ten championship. And then, just all the memories there, I was able to meet thousands and thousands of kids from the Northeast that, I was able to, and some of them I was able to help give them an opportunity to come play at Penn State. It's just, I'll never forget that experience. The crowd, the fan base. Very much like New York.
Right.
Very much like New York. You get a lot of New York people that are Penn State fans and New York Giants fans. It's a lot of crossover. when I got the job with the Giants. A lot of people hit me up from Penn State. So, I mean, it was just a great experience. And I had some great players. I know you talk about statistics and things like that. It was just some great players that I was able to bless the coach, that just did it the right way and worked hard. And, I love seeing those guys when they posted they graduated. And real excited. I got the chance now to be with Saquon and Cam Brown in the New York Giants organization. So that's really cool, knowing those guys since they were 17 years old. So I can't, if I never work in college again, and that's the only college, that was my final college experience, I'll be good with it.
What's the difference between coaching in college and the NFL?
Well, I really wish I was able to feel the fan experience, because everyone told me that Penn State was comparable to like any pro venue, but we, obviously the difference to me is that you're coaching a professional athlete, and I didn't change the way I coached. The players are really similar, and they're kind of the same. They're still young. I was blessed to have a really young room, but the biggest difference for me would have been like, how would it have been in that run we were making to the play? We were trying to get the playoffs the last game, and just how the fans would have been. I would have liked to have seen that, but obviously, we got bigger fish to fry with the COVID than worrying about the fans are in the stands or not.
Definitely. So, Coach, let's talk about let's turn to the Giants for a minute. Now, I know you've had a relationship with the defensive coordinator, Coach Graham over there, and he's from Connecticut also, if I'm correct.
Nutmeg State.
Yes, sir. Connecticut's strong, my friend. So, when you were contacted, who contacted you, and what was that feeling you had when you got the job, Coach?
Well, the thing is, if you guys know Patrick, he's really not an emotional guy. He can get emotional, but he's really, kind of laid back personality and not like a very aggressive brain thinking, but he's a laid back personality guy. So he literally just called me on the phone. He goes, do you have any interest in this job at all? I was like, yeah, of course I do. But I mean, it was just like that subtle. And then it became, okay, we'll get you down here. You talk to Coach Judge and the rest of the defensive staff that we hired, and give you an interview. But we're real excited about bringing you in. And obviously, I had some connections with Joe from people in the past, and some of our professional organizations and things like that. We got the same agent, basically, is what I'm telling you. The same agency. Okay. So those dots get connected very quickly. So I go there, I interview. I've just done recruiting in North Jersey. Actually, I started in Connecticut during the day, came to North Jersey, recruited, and then I ended up at the Giants facility. And Pat was like putting this pressure on me. He kept calling me. I'm like, have you been through this traffic going from Connecticut to New Jersey at 6 o'clock? I said, I'm coming, man. Because I never gave him a definitive time because I knew the traffic. I said, I'll be there somewhere between 6 and 7. And at about 5:45, I was getting phone calls. So I made it across the D-Dub and got there on time. But basically, when I left that place, I looked up and all my memories through my football journey just hit me. I looked up and I said, I just interviewed with the New York Football Giants. I'm like, and if I don't get this job, the fact that I walked in that building and interviewed after the journey that I went through, I love the job. I love to have it, but the accomplishment just to get there, it was like surreal. I literally sat in my car and looked up at that. I looked up at that sign and I said, that was pretty cool, man. I thought about Wesleyan and when I was at Trinity having to line the fields, and then all the odd jobs you had to do to get to the point, where you were at, driving your own car, recruiting, at Bowling Green, just running your car to the dirt, and just that you don't get the miles back. I don't know, man. It was a surreal feeling for me.
Coach, what team were you a fan of growing up?
I'll be honest with you. I always tell the truth. I was a Cowboys fan growing up. I was a Cowboy household for whatever reason. I don't know how the guys from Connecticut were Cowboy fans. But we had a lot of Cowboy fans. And, the funny thing is my brother and my family, they're out of control. First of all, I told my brother
Coach, I've been following the Giants since 1967. Way back when Fran Tarkin and Ron Johnson were their main players on offense, and I think Ralph Heck and Spider Lockhart were their stars on defense. And we've gone through a lot of times as Giant fans where the team kind of fell off and it came back and fell off. The longest drought was from 67 to 86 when Bill Parcells took the Giants to the Super Bowl. And I hated Dallas because they beat us every year. And, so we've had a little bit of a drop off. And what I saw, and I know, as I said, my assistant producer, Linda, and I talked to her about it too, about the messages. What we saw this year was a total different team out there than we saw last year and the year before. We saw a team that was, especially defensively, Coach, that never stopped trying, that was always flying to the ball, that seemed aggressive, that were playing together, and a very young team for the most part. And you could just see, I didn't expect you guys to go out there and go to the playoffs the first year. I expected having Coach Judge and Coach Graham and you and the rest of the coaches there. I saw something, a plan in place to start rebuilding the culture over there to turn them into a tougher team again. And I saw that, especially on the defense. Everybody was talking offense in the beginning of the year. We got so many weapons. And everybody was like, well, the defense is young and we don't have. But you could see from the opening game against Pittsburgh, there was only a couple games where the offense kind of got the best of you. And majority of those games, Coach, the defense was playing off the hook, keeping them in games. Is that because of Coach Judge, the way he sets the table, or is that the way you guys set the table on defense?
I think it's all encompassing, right? So it starts with Coach Judge first and foremost, right? Because he's going to set the tone, and he sets the tone for the culture on both sides of the ball. And I think, the way he sets the tone for us on defense, because I can talk specifically of that. He wants us to play hard. He wants us to be smart. He wants us to be accountable. And I know those things sound like lip service, but if you do the minimal things right, then you got a chance to achieve something special, right? So obviously we did not finish the year where we wanted to be. There were small accomplishments within that. And, everybody saw the change in the defense and things like that. But, you just got great professionals over there on that side of the football and throughout the organization that just want to be really good at what their craft. And, start with Coach Judge. He's going to push us and push the staff and push the players. And, it's fun to be around because he's the same person every day. He comes in, no nonsense. He's quick too. He got some quick one-liners that have some humor to them, but they will sting you if you're not paying attention. It's just that. And then obviously Coach Graham is the leader of the defense, and so excited to work for him because, he's just – every day he's going to bring energy to the room, and he's going to bring energy to the players and everything like that. So we're just excited about where we're going with everything, and we got a lot of stuff to accomplish. There is no second place trophy, right? So we all play for the right things, but you definitely, as you're looking at things, you can definitely see progress, and we did see that throughout the season. There was a change from start to finish, and that's all you can ask for.
Speaking of progress, I've been a lifelong Jet fan, and to see Leonard Williams take it up a notch, it made me wince to see how much he's improved since coming, over to the Giants.
Leonard Williams is just getting to know him over the summertime. It just, the kid has unbelievable interest in a lot of things. We talked about deep sea fishing. going under the ocean, and he was stabbed fish with swords, and he's always like, Coach, you got to come with me, and he wants to jump off cliffs and rock. Like, he loves things outside of football. But I knew that about him, and I knew that getting and tapping into that would have an effect on him throughout the season, because what I'm telling you is a guy is a relationship guy.
Yeah.
He wants you to know that you got his back, and I proved to him very early on that I had his back. I mean, people said, "What do you do with him?" I said, "We talked about spearfishing." Like a different drug on now. He just kind of talked about spearfishing. The guy's he's really fond of jumping in the ocean and stabbing fish. But he's got tremendous work ethic. You just love the way the guy works and the way the guy prepares, and the talent base is there. I mean, he's a freak of nature. I mean, I told people sometimes it's like you got a joystick and you're like moving the joystick, and the guy can go do that, and you're like, you move it again and he can do another move. He's just a great guy to be around. I'm so happy for him that he erased some of those things that people talked about before about him not finishing and those things, and I've never really talked to him about finish, right? I talked because that was the word in the media. He couldn't finish, so I'm not going to talk to him about that because there's a negative connotation. I talked to him about process.
Right.
And, that's where we went with it, and he would say it during the game. He called me the Dragon Slayer, like Dragon Slayer process, right? Process. I'm like, yeah, process. So,
well, Coach, let's expand on that to your whole defensive line. I mean, you guys were in the top 5 against the run. As you said, I knew Leonard Williams was going to be good. I wasn't one of those naysayers because I saw his motor last year. His motor always goes, but Dexter Lawrence takes a step up. Hill takes a step up. Leonard Williams takes a step up. And, Coach, I mean, I know you're being humble, but, Coach, you did an unbelievable job with that defensive line this year. I mean, they were amongst the best in the league. And that goes to you, Coach, a little bit. I mean, that is where you win the game, as you know, is in the trenches. I mean, I'm not going to get into the gap, all that gap. I mean, I could with you, but maybe we'll talk off air one time about gap. Phillies and all that stuff. But what you seem to do, Coach, is you seem to have a way to communicate with that defensive line. You seem to have a way to get the most out of them all, because Dexter Lawrence and Hill played outstanding this year. And even the guys that came in off the bench, I can't remember his name right now. I got a mental block. Number 91. I mean, you had so many. I think that's sure. I'm trying to remember. But, I mean, you guys were just played as a unit. You stuffed the run in almost every case, and then you turned up loose the big dogs on the pass. I mean, I know you're being humble and you're a team player. I understand that, but you winning that trenches helped everybody out, including the linebackers to the defensive backs, which all really stepped up. So, I mean, congratulations on a great job, Coach.
Well, appreciate that.
And coaches, is such a thing as peaking for one particular game? Because that game against Seattle, the Giant defense that afternoon was the best defense in the NFL for that afternoon.
It's funny because every game you think you're going to peak. You got the plan and you're like, we got that. And then sometimes you go out there and the plan just didn't work like you wanted it to because they got players. And that particular day, those guys, it was nothing different, but that particular day, those guys definitely were where they were supposed to be at all times. And when you hit on all cylinders, you got a chance to be really good, because, I mean, you're talking about a Hall of Fame over here at quarterback. This guy's unbelievable. Pete Carroll, they just do such a great job. They got great energy. The team, they're just excited to play. They got, the big receiver that, he can run anybody down at any point. It looks like a DN. So, but I look like, oh my God, this guy's unbelievable. But it was just one of those days where I thought we hit like on all the proper cylinders. We didn't necessarily peak any differently because we go into every game kind of the same. Obviously the last game there you're playing against Dallas, and that we know what's at stake, and our intentions are the same, but what's at stake. So. That was just a great day for the boys in blue. We just got to try to emulate that every game now.
So, Coach, I would, and closing off with you, I want to tell you something. I would love for you to stay the whole career with the Giants, but I know that's not going to happen because you're a very talented coach, and I know you're going to have your own team one day sooner than later. And to let you know, Coach, really, we appreciate you coming on, and you're one hell of a coach.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate being on the show.
Take care, Coach.
Thank you, Coach. Have a great day.
Good work.
And good weather's coming. That bike is ready to ride, Coach. I'm telling you.
Yeah, we got to get that Harley back out on the road.
Yes, sir. Have a great day. All right, buddy.
Okay, Coach.
So there you go. The great coach, Sean Spencer, spending some time with us.
Did a heck of a job this year with the Giants.
He really turned that team around. But, Jack, we're not through today, Jack. We're going to end up having another big guest right after this break here. We got Dick Weiss, a Hall of Fame columnist for the NBA, college. I mean, this man has done it all, and he's coming on with us right after this break, Jack. So all you people that are following right now, stick with us. And then after that, we've got Randy Lange from the New York Jets coming up. So, guys, stick with us. We got a great show for you, and we'll keep bringing you the best guests we can for as long as you can, Jack. So we'll be right back, folks.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say, no, I have too much respect for my family and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and the station.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk, your name will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to. I made it clear to Matt what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Not really. A lot of kids try it.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think it's real?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking to kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with my great co-host, Jack Hirsch, covering as much sports as we can today, with as much guests as we can, in the least amount of time possible, Jack. And, you know, already, Jack, we had our first introduction to the defensive coach from the New York Giants, the defensive line coach, Coach Chaos himself, Sean Spencer. It was great having him on.
Very impressive guy.
Yeah, he is. He's the kind of coach that you want on your team, Jack, because he's very humble the way he approaches the game. He's not taking credit for anything. You got to give it to him, and it's hard for me even to take when you give it to him. But yeah, between him and then we had the Philly sports guy on earlier, covering all your Philly sports, and we even introduced the folks listening and watching to Frankie C and his show. They're all on Northeast Streaming Sports, Jack, a big network that we're a part of now and growing unbelievably fast, folks. So check out Northeast Streaming Sports, and there's a lot of shows on there, a lot of good personalities, and you can go to one place to get all your great sports coverage, Jack. So it's great being part of that. And coming up next, Jack, scheduled in is Dick Weiss, who is a Hall of Fame columnist, worked for Philadelphia Daily News and the New York Daily News, and NCAA, NBA, was a president of the Writers Association for the NFL. I mean, this guy's been all over the place. Very interesting man, and we're scheduled to have him coming on shortly. So hopefully he makes it on. But, Jack, we do.
Well, I used to read Dick Weiss's column in the New York Daily News a lot.
Did you really?
Troops. Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. So you'll get to meet the man in person if he makes it in, hopefully. We're waiting for him. But
his nickname is Hoops.
There you
call
go.
him Hoops is his nickname.
They call him Hoops. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So hopefully he gets in here with us soon. But while we have a break in the action, Jack, we do something every Wednesday. And while we got a shot, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and do this. So here it is. It's our Hall of Fame, our Wall of Fame inductee. Yes, sir. And this week, folks, we have one of the greatest baseball players of all time as our inductee. And that is, Jack, Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse himself. He made it to our Wall of Fame. And anybody that knows about baseball or follows baseball knows the name Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse, who played first baseman for the Yankees. A 7-time All-Star from 1939, 6-time world champion, 2-time American League MVP, 2-time Triple Crown, 1-time Triple Crown winner, AL batting champion in 1934, 3 times American League home run leader. This guy drove in more runs. The only one that drove in more runs than him was the great Babe Ruth, Jack. And if it wasn't for Babe Ruth, he may be the greatest baseball player of all time.
Well, obviously they didn't have all-star games before, because when you say a 7-time all-star, they didn't have the all-star games, early in his career where he would have been in the all-star game just about every season of his career, if not every season. And sometimes you have to wonder, if there wasn't a Babe Ruth, would we
Right.
be considering Lou Gehrig to be the greatest player of all time? And the things he accomplished were, unbelievable. I mean, he had the consecutive game streak play, 2,130 games. That was eventually broken by Cal Ripken. But when Ripken broke the streak, he said, look, don't even compare him to Lou Gehrig because he wasn't even in Lou Gehrig's class as a player. And Ripken was being polite, but he was telling the truth as well. But no shame in that because very few players in the history of baseball were in Lou Gehrig's class. Truly one of the all-time greats.
I definitely agree with that. Like I said, I mean, you can talk about, Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron. They're all great. And Babe Ruth, of course, really set the standard a long time ago. He made a Sandlot Park game into Major League Baseball, into a national sport. But I'm telling you, he played with Babe Ruth. I don't know how they got along, Jack, but he always played second fiddle to the Babe. And like I said, if not for Babe Ruth, we may be saying Lou Gehrig is the greatest of all time. So we're having a little problem getting Dick on.
Well, let me just mention one thing since we're on baseball to note. One of the greatest pitchers in Dodger history passed away yesterday Don Sutton at the age of 75. I'm not sure of the cause. Don Sutton had a great 23-year-old career. He wasn't one of the most dominant pitchers, but he was one of the best of his era. And to pitch that many seasons at the high level he did was truly, truly remarkable. 324 career wins. And he was a staple of those outstanding Dodger teams, from 1966 when he was a rookie through, throughout all the years, the Dodgers had solid teams. And just really one of the iconic Dodger players. And he worked also he had an iconic career too as an Atlanta Brave broadcaster. And he worked for that organization for 28 years as a broadcaster. So Don Sutton, we remember him today.
I'm talking a messenger right now with Dick Weiss. He said he's been waiting for 5 minutes. So I'm trying to figure out why he's not connected, to the show. Let me see if he clicked on the blue button to get into the studio, and we'll see if we can get him up here. Here we go. Let's see if he clicks on the blue button so we can enter backstage and we can bring him on. But yeah, I mean, Don Sutton, of course, pitched for the Dodgers. Jack, he had a great career. I think he was one of the few. There he is. He's coming in now, Jack. So, Dick, we're going to bring you up in a minute here. Let me kind of introduce you to the viewers. Dick Weiss is a Hall of Fame columnist. He worked for Philly News, covering NBA and college basketball. National columnist for New York Daily News for over 40 years. I mean, the man is a legend, and we're happy to have him. So let me bring Dick up. How you doing today, Dick?
Oh, it's good. It's so nice to see you guys.
Yeah, you too. I mean,
Hi, Dick.
We're very excited about having you on, especially today's show, Dick. We've had a lot of good guests, and you being one of the most famous in the NBA and covering the NCAA and all the accomplishments you had. We are so happy to have you on today. So what I want to start with you, Dick, is at the beginning. What made you become, interested in writing and broadcasting sports? Where did it all start?
You know what? It started in Philadelphia, guys. When I was 10 years old, I used to walk up to the corner, catch a bus to 69th Street, and take the L down the University of Pennsylvania campus and go to the Palestra. And at the time, they had college basketball doubleheaders. You could get in the building for $1.50 and sit along the baselines. And I became a regular down there from the time I was 10, 11 years old. And a lot of my friends back then all went to. The Big Five is a pretty storied tradition in college sports, guys, between Villanova, Temple, St. Joe's, LaSalle, and Penn. They've all had teams that have gone to the Final Four. So I really fell in love with the game itself back then. Went to Temple, played soccer. I was a bad goalie in a great soccer team. Uh, I was a sports editor of the paper, and I decided this is what I wanted to do with my life. I was never really sure, guys, whether I did this so I could see the games or whether I could write about them. But I covered in Philadelphia. I covered all of college basketball around the country, local college basketball. I covered the Sixers during Joyce's first 5 years there. Covered them when they won their last NBA championship. And then in 1993, I left to go to New York, and I was there for 21 years. And frankly, it was probably as good a job as there was in America because they never said no. They basically let me cover whatever college athletic event I wanted to cover for that period of time. I was on the road about 170 days, guys. And,
Wow.
I've gotten to cover 47 Final Fours ever since I graduated from college. Until this year, I had covered 32 straight national championships in football. Sadly, I have not seen a live sporting event since last March. I was at the Big East tournament getting ready for the second round games. After the first half of the first game of a doubleheader on Wednesday, they canceled the event to get us out of the building at the Garden. As I'm leaving, they say, well, two of the ushers had developed COVID off last night's game between St. John's and Georgetown. I mean, at the time, I don't think any of us realized how crazy it was about to get, particularly in New York, which turned into one of the epicenters. But I've gotten out of there, and sadly, I've kind of tried to stay in quarantine. I'm hoping that if we get a vaccine, I can get back to a Final Four, at least, at least because all the games themselves are all being played in Indianapolis. So I'm hoping I can get things turned back somewhat back into normal if that happens.
So Dick, as you mentioned, you covered a lot of national championships.
Right.
And I know this is almost impossible for you to answer, but I'm asking anyway. Which champion, for whatever reason, whether it's the players or what happened during the game, stands above the rest of you? I mean, what championship did you go to? And like I said, I know it's almost impossible to answer, but if there was one championship you had to pick, which one would that be?
Well, I back in the 80s, the Big East was just starting to make a dent in the national scene. And I got a chance I was covering Villanova in 1985. Rolly Massimino was the coach. He spent part of his early years up in Lexington High School and was at Stony Brook and wound up at Villanova. Villanova goes into the 1985 tournament as an 8 seed. He coaches 6 perfect games, including the game against Georgetown down in Lexington. And Villanova is the first team to win a national championship out of Philadelphia since LaSalle in 1954. And what made that so unusual is no one would have picked Villanova to win the tournament. I mean, the two teams that were consensus 1 and 2 were Georgetown and St. John's that year. They were considered to be the best team in a Big East that actually had 3 teams in a Final Four. And Villanova played the perfect game against Georgetown, as you probably remember. I mean, they shot 90% in the second half, didn't turn the ball over, had a bunch of Eastern kids, Eddie Pinkney, Dwayne McClain, and Gary McClain, and Harold Presley, and wound up giving Philadelphia a nice surprise. Philadelphia's the classic town. We always lose. We always find a way to lose somewhere along the line. I mean,
Well, I got to tell you,
Mr.
Dick, a funny story. I got married the Saturday night of the Final Four games, and I left to go to Spain the next day, the day before Villanova played Georgetown. Now,
That's
that was
great.
before the time of the internet. I didn't find out till about 5 days later when I'm in Spain and I pick up a copy of USA Today there. And I see the Villanova team with President Reagan, and it was complete disbelief on my part, seeing that Villanova upset Georgetown.
You know, when I went to I went down with the team to the White House, and you know, even 2 months later, I was still kind of like pinching myself because I didn't believe it happened. I mean, if you are a sports writer, I think the one thing you always want to do is try to cover a championship team. I got a chance to do that in '83 with the Sixers with Moses and Julius when they beat when they swept the Lakers in 4 straight in the finals that year. But you never expect it in Philadelphia because it's been long. It's been a long time between championships for a lot of the professional teams, and that was the last time that Philadelphia was on the top of the basketball world. I mean that decade itself was basically a Lakers Celtics decade. I mean, it was a Bird Magic decade, and when the Sixers would lose in the playoffs, I'd go right to Boston. I think I was there long enough to vote one year. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I must have been there at least a month and a half because you would go up and you would just travel with the Celtics the rest of the way. I mean, got a lot of good trips to the West Coast because back then the playoffs were 2-2, 1-1-1. So you got a chance to do a lot of traveling during that period of time.
In your opinion, Dick, the players leave in college to go to the pros, only after 1 year. I mean, how bad has that affected the college basketball game? You used to see these players at least there 3 years where they could build themselves a strong nucleus and the teams would be really strong. And now it's like, you have a good team for 1 year and you're competing and, a couple of your players are already gone the following year. Do you think the rule should maybe be changed back to where at least you spent 3 years with a team, not only for the college team, Dick, but for the overall college basketball itself?
Well, first of all, I think it was a much better game when you had teams with players who stayed multiple years. I think that they got a chance to adjust, and frankly, I think it was a better game for the fans too because they actually got to know the people that they were watching. Right now, we are still in a one and done era. I think that coaches are probably going to start rethinking that after this year. If you take a look at Kentucky and Duke, two teams who have made the most of recruiting players who leave after 1 year. Both teams are struggling. Duke is 5-4, Kentucky is 4-8, and there's a good chance that neither one of them could be in the NCAA tournament this year. And they were the biggest proponents of that. I prefer doing it like Villanova did in 16 and 18, and even Carolina, what they did in 17. I think the longer you can keep players around, take a look at the teams that have won the national championships, guys. Most of them are filled with upperclassmen. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be pros and make the type of money that Kentucky players make after they leave in a one and done season, but most of them have been around long enough to understand how to succeed, and they provide not only maturity but also leadership. I prefer the game played that way, and I think it's probably going to continue. I mean, I'm sure that the best team doesn't always win the NCAA tournament, but it seems like the hot team and the team with the best chemistry has the best chance of winning, guys.
Dick, one of my close friends worked for the Philadelphia Daily News for 28 years. I'm sure you know him well, Bernard Fernandez.
Oh, yeah, boxing guy.
He sends
the boxing guy.
Right, he sends his best. I'm a past president of the Boxing Writers
Association. Oh, it's great.
America. I succeeded Bernard, who I'm very close with.
Very nice.
But I got to see firsthand how the internet affected the newspaper business. And
Yes.
one who used to read your column on a regular basis for the New York Daily News when you wrote for them, it's not like it used to be. Have newspapers become irrelevant in a sense because of the internet?
I think sadly they have, and I think eventually the internet will become irrelevant as people find a faster way to get their news. Everybody wants their news yesterday. They don't want their news tomorrow. And sadly, it's taken away a lot of great writing. A lot of people who had strong opinions, a lot of people who could set the agenda for the day. Now it's completely different. Frankly, newspapers are dying. I think we all know that. You take a look at the amount of major columnists who are around. They're no longer there.
Yeah.
Newspapers are cutting an awful lot of staff. They're offering buyouts to a lot of staff. Take a look at my old paper, the New York Daily News. It's a shell of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went to the Daily News, 1993, their circulation daily was 900,000. It would go, and if the Yankees won a playoff game, you'd be over 1 million. And the Sunday paper was always over 1 million. Now, my guess is that the daily paper there is probably under 150. I mean, it's really changed. And frankly, they've gotten rid of a lot of people who really were household names in that paper, and they haven't necessarily replaced them.
Well, not just that, they no longer send reporters to events the way they did before.
Yes. I'll tell you what, the pandemic has really allowed newspapers to reassess what they do. Now, they are finding out you can cover games from home, stay on the couch after the game. They put you on a Zoom press conference, and they save themselves airfare. They save themselves rental car fare, hotels, and food, which probably cuts the budget down. But I still believe there's nothing like being there. I mean, I'm currently working for a website called Blue Star Media, and they send me all over the world to cover U.S. basketball juniors and seniors. I mean, I've gotten a chance to go to Barcelona and Prague and Cairo and Canary Islands, Madrid, a number of European cities that I would have never gotten to go to. Now, when we went to, when I was in Rio for the 16 Olympics, I was supposed to be in Japan last year for the Olympics in Tokyo before they were canceled. I mean, if I were working for a newspaper now, I doubt very much whether I'd be at any of these events. This website sends me to the Bahamas every year to cover Battle for Atlantis. I definitely wouldn't be at an event like that anymore. I mean, I was really lucky. It was kind of the golden era of newspapers, Jack, when I did them back in the 80s. And I think that back then, papers really, we were kind of a PM wire service for Knight Ridder, so we had a little extra money to travel. I'd be on the road 170 days. It was crazy. I mean, and Mark Wicker, our columnist, was on the road over 200. So, if you worked for a newspaper and you wanted to travel, it was an unbelievable opportunity. And that opportunity will never come back again. I think that there's still an interest in pro football and pro baseball. Although there was a situation in New York when they had enormous cutbacks. And the first day that Tronc took over, they did not staff the Yankees or the Mets. First time in the history of New York papers that neither one of those teams wasn't staffed by a New York paper, and it just goes to show. Now, that's obviously changed, but people have really cut back in the things that they do, and they've cut back in the travel that they do, and I think it's kind of sad because it was a fun life, guys.
I
Dick,
used to love getting the newspapers.
So,
Go
Dick,
ahead, Matt.
Yes.
Just a last question for you before we have to let you go. And I would love to get you back on if we could and get
Not
more
a problem
on that subject. You've received multiple awards for your work in sports. You've been on CNN, Big Ten Network, guests on radio shows across the country.
You did your homework.
Is there anything more exciting than covering that game live? Anything?
I don't think there is anything more exciting than that. I mean, there are certain events for me that still give me goosebumps. I mean, the day of the Final Four, when you have four teams who all think they have a shot to win a national championship, and you can feel the energy in a building. That, I mean, to me, that's still one of the most special things that you can get out of our business, and being able to write about it. I mean, when I was in New York, we actually had a pretty powerful voice because of the circulation, and I got lucky. Toward the end, I was writing 3-4 columns a week on college sports, and it's something that the New York papers used to do back in the 40s, back when Notre Dame and Army were the home teams, and back when the Net Irish used to have the great doubleheaders at the Garden. I mean, doesn't happen anymore, and they cover St. John's, but not on a regular basis. Used to cover St. John's every day. We had a beat writer by Roger Rubin. He was on St. John's every day during the winter, and that's how we saw college basketball locally. And then I basically covered the royalty teams like Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, UCLA, the number one team, and then the Big East. So I got a chance to get a real good dose of this thing before the tournament started, and it was probably as enjoyable as anything that I could imagine growing up when I used to go and sit in the Pluster and watch doubleheaders.
Okay, Dick, I'm telling you, I wish we could have got you in sooner. That blue button is a crazy thing at the bottom. When you
No. Listen, it was so nice to talk to both of you.
Right.
It's a real pleasure.
And Dick, will definitely get you back on to let you know. Jack is also a sport boxing writer.
That's so nice.
Yeah, so he's been around the business for boxing for 40 years, and
that's great.
And he's still writing, and he's writing on the internet right now instead of in magazines. Well, maybe he still does some magazines.
Well, even covering, just very quickly, what you mentioned before, even covering fight shows, a lot of them have to be covered off the TV.
Yeah.
And it's just what it is. And I think a lot of teams are going to be reassessing with their broadcasters, with some of them who actually are broadcasting from home right now.
Yes.
Might be a wave in the future. But Mac, I know, has to move the show along. So
yes, sir. So
okay, guys.
Thanks.
We appreciate it, Dick, and hope to have you on again soon.
Hey,
I appreciate all your knowledge and experience. And listen, people like you ain't going to die, Dick. You're going to keep going and being stronger. Just use the internet to your advantage, my friend, okay?
Oh, it was so nice to talk to both of you guys. Have a great show, guys.
Thanks a lot, Dick.
And you have a great day, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Jack. So there was Dick Weiss, the Hall of Fame columnist. Unbelievable coverage of the NCAA.
You got to schedule these guys for a long amount of time.
I know, but you know, sometimes these guests can only come in at certain times. And I'm gonna tell you right now, we got a real special guest coming up next, Jack. We got the head of the public relations media, at least a senior consultant. He runs the Jets over there, and he came on once before under circumstances that weren't so good, but now we have some big news for the Jets, and we're happy to get him on. And this is our friend Randy Lange, who is the Jets. I put Randy, senior media producer. That might not be exactly right, but I know you're a big wig over there. You handle their media. You are an editor over there, and I know you're at least a senior consultant over there with their media. And it's a pleasure having you on, Randy. We really enjoyed the last one. You came in, you did a great job under, like I said, not the best circumstances, but you sure did. You did hold your own and speaking on the good things of the Jets. And Jack is a huge Jets fan. I'm a Giants fan, but I followed the Jets since 1967 with my grandfather, and he's a huge Jets fan. They both love Joe Wilson. Yes. So,
Randy, I'm thirsting for success. When the Jets won the Super Bowl, I was in high school. Who would have thought I'm a grandfather now, and I'm waiting, and we'll get there, though. Yeah, we'll
yes,
get
you
there.
will.
Did you say you were in high school? I might have been in grade school. I don't even know.
One of the thrills of my lifetime, seeing the Jets upset the Colts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we keep trying to regain those days, and that's why I wear this hat here, which is from the '63 Jets. I think that was the only season that they used the airplane logo.
Wow.
But it's a symbol of building when Weave Eubank came in to something great, and hopefully this is where we're at now with the hiring of Robert Saleh as the head coach.
Yes, Randy. I was just going to get to that. I mean, I've watched him over at San Francisco. He does a great job. Did a great job with the defense over there, and signed him to a big contract. And the most impressive thing I saw about the players that were under him that he coached was not only that he's a great teacher, but he's a great communicator, something that the Jets kind of lacked over the last few years, where he actually takes their opinions into consideration. He listens to what they have to say, not only during practice, but on the field during the games. And not, I don't want to put anybody down, or I don't even want to go there. But what I want to do is say that this is what I think the Jets needed more than anything else to turn around their culture. You now have one of the biggest candidates out there as your head coach, and you have the first 2-round draft picks. I mean, how great is it to be a Jet right now?
Well, it's better than it was, for sure. But everything you've mentioned about Robert Saleh seems to be true. I thought, and it doesn't matter what I thought, but when the interviews began, I said, well, Saleh's a good guy. I like Brian Daboll from Buffalo and former New England and former Jets coach to possibly be the guy. And Arthur Smith, I think down in Tennessee, struck me as offensively minded, could be a very good hire. But Saleh seemed to be the guy. And that's how Christopher Johnson and team president Jaime Elhai and Joe Douglas saw it too. And so we have announced it. It took a little while for us to make it official. Right. Everybody else made it official for us, as you know. But he will be speaking, I think, for the first time as Jets head coach tomorrow on Thursday. And we'll hear a lot more about what he has in store for the team. But as you mentioned, the thing that struck the interviewers of the Jets was great communicator, inspires loyalty in his players, great teacher as a part of being a communicator, and holds people accountable, which seems to have been the case with what happened with the 49ers as far as their defense rising from last in the league before he got there, 2016, 32nd in a lot of categories, up to a top 5 defense, even last year when the defense had as many problems in San Francisco as the Jets had everywhere on their team. And as injuries go, Saleh just plugged the next guy in, and they continue to perform at a very high level. And all of that is very impressive. And then I'll get into one more thing when we get going here, but very impressive hire, the guy that I liked, but that doesn't matter. It's the guy that the Jets liked.
Right.
Randy, what's going to dominate the Jet conversation, let's be honest about it, in the coming weeks, and this is a very uncomfortable topic, it's going to be Deshaun Watson. It's uncomfortable for the Jets hierarchy because they have a quarterback in Sam Darnold, and they can't make it seem like they'd actively want Deshaun Watson, but no team in their right mind, unless they have a Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, would bypass on a talent like that, a franchise quarterback who's established himself and he's young. And the Jets do have the chips to make a serious run at him. So those are the questions that are going to come up over and over until Deshaun Watson's situation with the Texans is resolved. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't add too much to the conversation only because I haven't researched it. I'm not reporting on it. We would not report on it on NewYorkJets.com until things became official or we were ready to announce something. I don't know which way we're turning on the quarterback situation. We do know that Joe Douglas said that he likes Sam Darnold still, and thinks he's going to be an excellent quarterback in the league. He didn't really commit to being an excellent quarterback with the Jets, although that's certainly a possibility. And I wouldn't be surprised either way that, we've got a new head coach who may have certain things that he wanted to see in a quarterback that others either didn't see because of the last year or two where, Sam was not at his best because the team around him was not at its best. At its best. So it'll be interesting to see what the Jets decide to do. Deshaun Watson would obviously cost a lot of draft capital and so on. And it's also a matter of will they patch things up in Houston? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't sound like it, but stranger things have happened, and he may or may not be available. And so, but of course, if you talk trade and you talk big enough numbers, and I suppose anything is doable. So I'd say at this point we don't really know, but Sam Darnold is the quarterback for the short term and for the next year until further notice. And I'm still optimistic about Sam, only because I just the NFL is one of those typical poker games: bad hands, good hands. You don't have a lot of time to produce with the hand you're dealt. You better make the best of each hand. And I don't know that Sam has done that or not. I mean, he talked very critically of himself at the end of the season. He says, I didn't do enough. I wasn't consistent enough. Now, is that him putting it on his shoulders because that's what he does as the quarterback? It's possible. But he also knows that he has room to grow and he needs to grow. And maybe this would be the new lay of the land with the Jets that would help him grow. And we don't know who the coordinator is yet. You've heard names like, LaFleur, and I don't know who else might have been mentioned, but, names that would certainly help polish a quarterback in a different way than he'd been polished his first 3 years. So I'm still optimistic to see what he can do with a solid and consistent offensive line around him, a healthy one, and a healthy group of dynamic wide receivers, and a Chris Herndon who plays like the Chris Herndon of his rookie season and the end of this season, as opposed to the middle third. And so when he gets those things, I think we'll see a better Sam Darnold, and I think he's confident that will be the case. But it all remains to be seen.
Well, Randy, we have a guest that comes on, famous Giants broadcaster Lance Meadow, who comes on once in a while. And we were discussing, Jack, of course, was talking about, Sam Darnold and that. And he said, would know why you would want to let Sam Darnold go so fast. I mean, the guy is young. He has potential, unlimited potential. I mean, he can make plays, and he hasn't had a team around him. So why are you so quick to throw him to the curb when he's been under 3 different regimes almost since he's been there? And a lot of quarterbacks, Randy, they end up in, as you said, they're dealt a hand. They're dealt to a team that maybe not be as solid as another team. They might be changing head coaches all the time, which the Jets have done a lot in recent history. That brings in new offensive coordinators. That brings in new offensive coaches. And no matter how good you are, if you're not in a stable position, and you can go through all the great quarterbacks that are playing right now, they all had stable positions. I mean, if you look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at Tom Brady, you look at Wilson, you look at even Josh Allen has been stable. He's had the same basic coaches around him since he started. And if not, he's got coaches that have improved his performance. And I think this is more of a team concept than it is a player concept. And I agree with Lance. I think you guys shouldn't kick, or the Jets, not you guys, but the Jets should be careful about kicking this guy to the curb, because he sure does have an arm and he sure can make a lot of plays. Randy.
I think obviously it's going to come out in the next several months when they decide what they're going to do. But if you keep Sam, then you keep those draft picks, and then you fill in the places that are urgently needed to be filled around Sam. And so at his best, I think we've seen a very good quarterback, but it has not been consistently at his best, as he said. And so, what do we do? I mean, we're looking at probably definitely a change of offensive coordinators and a system, perhaps. West Coast offense has been mentioned, that maybe that plays to his strengths, not just because he's from the West Coast, and Saleh is 4 years from the West Coast, but maybe that's the answer. I mean, I wish I had more definitive answers for the fans, but I agree with you. I mean, let's not kick the guy out to the curb unless we're absolutely sure that, we have the solution. And, since the Jets, did that heinous thing and won 2 games at the end of the season and knocked themselves out of the top pick, it'll be interesting to see how that draft. We won't know until the draft plays out to see who the Jets might.
Well,
take.
speaking of that, let's say they don't pull the trigger on a deal for Deshaun Watson. They keep their draft picks. What do they do with the number 2 pick? Do they trade down and maybe get 2 number 1s late in the draft? Do they select at number 2? The Jets have obviously several needs, but what is their main need? Do they go for Devontae Smith, the great wide receiver from Alabama?
Yeah.
Do they look elsewhere? Do they need help, obviously, on the offensive line? They need help everywhere in reality. So, I mean, what's the best course of action for the Jets if they do keep their draft picks?
It just would be my opinion that if you stay with Darnold, then maybe you do look to trade down and you look to, unless you love Devontae Smith so much that you say, all right, that's one of the answers right there. Right. But do they take Fields? I mean, do they take a quarterback at number 2? Then you find out what way they're thinking, for the last several months. It's all right, we need to bring in the next young quarterback to compete with Sam and see what happens there. So, you've got all the scenarios in front of you, and I wish I had a better answer, but I would say possibly, Joe Douglas has shown that he's very comfortable with, maneuvering around the draft and acquiring draft capital and making trades. Not all of them have been great trades, but, most of them have worked out pretty well, and he has brought some talent onto the roster, and I'd say that that's certainly a likely or a possible scenario for the Jets as they go into the draft.
Or if someone like Mac Jones, the Alabama quarterback's available early in the second round, even at number 23, do they go halfway? Don't pull the blockbuster Watson deal, but use one of those later picks to get a quarterback to maybe compete a little with Sam Darnold.
I would say that that's certainly possible too. Of course, you want to watch out for number 2 picks with the Jets, and especially number 2 quarterbacks, because Geno didn't work out so well. Right. I mean, he worked out well for a year and a half or so. But,
yeah.
We saw him again finally, backing up Russell Wilson for Seattle. So, right. But that's what you're going to get. I mean, you could get a Russell Wilson in, round 2 or a Joe Montana in round 3, but you certainly can't count on that.
No.
But I would say, definitely I would say Joe Flacco staying around is insurance. I don't know that that's going to happen. So, you're looking at bringing in a quarterback, and it would be somebody initially to back up Sam, but, as in Miami, somebody to push him and perhaps take the job from him if that's how much you feel, about his quality. But, going that low in the draft into the second round, you tend to think, well, he's going to be a learner. He's going to be a studier underneath Sam for a while. And so it would look like status quo to me for the short term for 2021, if that's the route they went.
Well, Randy, not only do you have, the 2 picks in the first round, you guys got 5 selections in the first 3 rounds. I mean, if that's not a good situation to start building your team with, I don't know what is. I mean, you're talking, 5 selections can get you a lot of capital, and for the rebuild process, I wouldn't be interested, and this is my opinion, in trading away draft picks when you made the big trade to get all these draft picks. I think this is one of the things that attracted Salah there. I mean, not only do you have, the first two, but now you can actually start a nucleus for your team on whatever side of the ball you want to go with. And I think that's one of the attractions that Salah likes. So, I mean, you guys are set up this year to really make a dent in youth and to start that nucleus for that young team to come up through. I mean, you got free agency signings, that's no problem, wheeling a deal through. But I think this is a major step for the Jets this year, Randy.
Yeah, it certainly is, and you're right. I think that was, because not only did the Jets have to like Salah, but he has to like the Jets. And I know that some fans fretted, well, who would want to come here after 2-14 and this and that. And it's like, well, the Jets have a pretty good, presentation that they can make every time they need to hire a head coach. And hopefully it won't be for a long time now. But, they have still a fantastic facility in Florham Park. It's 2008 we moved in there. And so it's still, haven't been there in a while because of certain viruses out in the environment. But it's still a great facility for learning and for coaching up teams. And it's the New York market, the New York area. It's also the draft capital, as you mentioned. I mean, Jamal Adams, as much as it hurt to lose him and to lose him the way they did to Seattle, Seattle did a very nice job of, making sure that pot was sweet enough. And that's going to sustain the Jets and Joe Douglas and Salah for the next several years, because they have another pick the following year. So, all of those things made the Jets an interesting landing spot, especially for a guy like Salah, whose home base is not San Francisco, it's Detroit. It's the Dearborn area where he grew up. He went to Northern Michigan. He's been a Michigan guy forever. He says he still roots for Fordson High in Dearborn, which, I mean, what head coach would admit that rooting for his high school team? He still loves that area. The Lions thought that he would be, I mean, certainly he was a candidate for them for a while. He didn't go there. I mean, would that have been a good landing spot for him? Probably, but he saw something more in the Jets. And like we talked about earlier, thankfully he did, because I think he was certainly, you can find several people every year who, when you need a head coach, who would be the right call. He was the right call.
Does the next fact involve Woody Johnson was serving as an ambassador over in England the last few years, but now he's back. His brother Christopher Johnson was running the Jets. I'm sure Woody Johnson was having some input in the meantime. What does it mean, Woody Johnson coming back now? Because he was more or less looked at as being the owner of the team before he went to England.
That'll be another question that will resolve itself over the coming months and years, because neither Woody nor Christopher publicly has said anything regarding the division of labor, although Christopher has addressed the question in the past and said, I think, something to the effect that, he will have more input than he did before when Woody was the CEO running the Jets. But there was no hint that there's a power struggle or anything like that. I mean, these brothers are close, and like you said, I'm certain that Christopher bounced ideas off of Woody across the pond every once in a while, and I think that it will be a good relationship going forward to help the Jets win. And I think one reason is because both Christopher and Woody seem to have this instinct, which is a very good one, I think, to hire people that they believe in and trust, and turn the job over to them, whatever job that might be. Now, has that worked out every time they've hired a head coach? No. But this is an example of Joe Douglas being involved, at the forefront of the job search, and Christopher, obviously, and as we mentioned, Jaime Elhide, the president, all involved in the interview process. But this was not a process of bringing in Charlie Casserly and having him as an advisor, or going to an advisory panel for a GM. The Jets did not go that route this time, and they turned it into an kind of a typical NFL head coaching search. And again, you don't know until Robert Saleh gets on the field. You see the cut of his jib, and you see how he coaches in third and long and fourth and goal, and 2-minute drills and things like that. But it seems as if by going this route, they did the right thing. And I believe, Christopher and Woody would be, they will be the CEOs, or however the division of labor is there for them. And they will let the football people, Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, run the football operation.
So, Randy, a lot of times, and you brought this up a little bit with LaFleur, a lot of times when a coach leaves a team, he makes friends, he gains respect from some people in the coaching staff. Parcells did it, Belichick has done it. I mean, all the great coaches do this. And you see over in the other New York team, Joe Judge brings in his staff from relationships he's had over the years. And the great thing about having, to me, and hiring a defensive coordinator instead of picking somebody out of college is they form relationships with a lot of people that they've coached with before, both college and pro. And not only that, they form relationships with professional football players that come up on contracts and that either like you or don't like you in one case or another. And I think this is going to be another important thing that your new head coach is going to bring to the table with all different relationships he's formed over the years with the different coaches. And this may give you a staff. And, the head coach is very important, especially on field. But when the practices are going, you need those coordinators. You need them position coaches that can come out and work with you and have a relationship with you so they know what you expect and how the team's going to run. So I think that's another benefit. You're going to pick up having Saleh there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I became familiar with that, probably started a little later as a beat writer back in the 80s, 90s, but obviously saw it with the way Bill Parcells ran the Jets and brought in his people. And that meant not only coaches, but it meant players. And for the most part, I mean, they didn't win a title, obviously, under Parcells, but they did get to a title game, an AFC title game. And they did it with Bill's people. And I would expect the same thing. We've seen some candidates for the assistant coaching positions. Nothing that I could even remember or get into, but I mean, just people that that he's worked with, and Robert Saleh, that is, and that he would be comfortable with, and that will be an extension of his vision and his plan. Right. And then you bring in some players that he was familiar with who become free agents this season and next season and maybe the year after. So, yeah, we will see that influx, and we will see hopefully a beneficial effect, because the other thing that I think I left this out when we were talking about what Saleh might have seen in the Jets. I think also similar, I don't want to overplay this because some people will laugh. Bill Parcells decided to come to the Jets in 1997 because he liked what he saw on that roster after they went 1-15 in 96. Now, that doesn't mean that, they had a great team, but they had a great core, a great foundation. And we fast forward, 23 years, and the players especially are saying the same thing about the current roster of Jets. We think we have a good core here. That's what Marcus May said when he was checking out to go back home for a while at the end of the season. And other players have said the same thing. We like what we built here, even though the record didn't reflect it. Now, do you take that for granted? No, you have to, you trust but verify, right? I mean, but that's Robert Saleh's job. So, but I think he saw, yes, we have some players. Is it a great large group? No, because 2-14 kind of says it all. But is it a group that we could work with and build and use them plus the players that we bring in and the coaches that we bring in? Yeah, I think he felt we can do that here. This is another plus for coming in because they're not starting from scratch. They may have looked like it to a lot of people, but we have seen the players perform at certain levels, and they're still there. So, or else they will be signed or have to be signed. or they will go and they'll bring in other players. So I think that was a whole part of the dynamic for Robert Saleh as he decided where to go to become a head coach in the NFL.
So one last thing for you before we let you go, because we're almost at the end of the show. Busy show today. Great show. I just wanted to let you know that really when you came on last year, we were your good luck charm, Randy. If you remember, you guys were like at 0 and whatever it was. And then you turned around, you started winning games. So, if you have any problems over there this year, let the coach know that, the Mac and Jack Sports Show is a good luck charm for the Jets.
I don't think we were such good luck, Mac, winning those couple of games, but okay.
Yeah, well, that's you.
I don't have to expand on that.
Yeah, we'll start with a 6-2 record, and we'll make sure we chart each win underneath your heading, and we'll see how the winning percentage goes. But 6-2 isn't bad so far.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that. Again, Randy, thank you for coming on. We appreciate getting the Jets represented on our show. It's great having you on. You're very knowledgeable. You know what's going on over there, and you're very, very good at explaining things that you really can't get into details. We understand, but we know the information you're giving us is right on the money. Whether you go on both sides or not, it's very well thought out, and it's very significant. When we talk to Jets. So again, thank you for coming on, Randy. Hopefully we get you on here again before the season starts, and we'll talk a little bit about maybe some draft picks or some free agencies, or maybe even a coaching staff hiring or something when he gets everything in place. Always a pleasure, Randy. Thank you.
Very good. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thanks, Randy. And all Jet fans are revigorated with all that draft capital.
Yes, they are.
Yes, sir, Randy. Have a great day. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, you guys are set for the future, at least for the next couple of years, Randy. New head coach, new coaches, draft picks, and people that know this coach and that want to play for him. So I'm feeling really good about the Jets' future right now.
Very good. Me too.
Okay, Randy, you have a great day, my friend. So there you go, Jack, the great Randy Lange over from the Jets, giving us some great information about the team. His thoughts on certain things. It's really good to have people that, come in and they talk facts instead of rumors and talk about, positive things instead of just negative, because everything you see on anything on the internet is mostly negative. And we got to realize that things don't just happen like this. We want things to happen like this as a fan, as a person rooting for things. It don't happen like that. It takes a while to build an organization, and it takes a while to get the culture changed and to go back in the winning direction. Not everybody is like Bill Parcells bringing his own staff and stuff like that. You have to build, and a lot of times that's through the draft and through some great free agent signings. And the Jets, I think, are open to all that this year, Jack.
And especially having a number 2 overall pick in the draft, and having those other number 1 draft picks and picks in the 2nd, 3rd round. I mean, there's so many possibilities. Are they going to be all in into Deshaun Watson? And if not, then what? Are they going to take someone with the number 2 pick? Are they going to trade down, get more draft capital? There are so many, possibilities. Internally, the coaching staff is discussing Sam Darnold with the ownership.
Sure.
They're saying things. We have no idea what they're talking about, but you better believe they've either made a decision on Sam Darnold's future soon, or they're going to make one. It's not going to take that long. I mean, they have a good idea what direction they want to go in, but they're not going to tip their hand to anyone.
Yeah, and if they don't tell you, Jack, they'll tell you with the moves they make in the offseason.
Oh, absolutely.
Stuff. So Jack, I mean, this has been one of the most busy shows as far as guests go. Tomorrow is going to be another busy one, Jack. We got like 3 or 4 guests coming in, all very good, all ready to rock and roll with us. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And I enjoy, covering.
Mac, we got the momentum going with guests. We got the big mo going.
Yes, we do. And, once you have guests on, at least the other guests, Jack, it's always who you know in this business, my friend. Trust me.
We got to turn them away. More guests want to come on. We got to turn them away.
Yes.
We'll book them. We'll get around to everyone.
Yes, we will. So it was great, folks, having you on today and watching our show with all our guests. Special thanks again to Dick Weiss, Coach Coach Spencer, defensive line for the New York Giants. Randy Lange coming in from the New York Jets. And, of course, our very own Jack, Philly sports guy. I don't know how he got so popular, but he did, man. He's unbelievable.
Let's ride his coattails.
Yes. And Frankie C., thanks for stopping in for a brief moment. And hopefully you can start explaining why the Boston Celtics are going to beat the Philadelphia 76ers and not give any games away, Jack. Right? Am I right?
Well, yeah, okay. Well, it's early in the season. I'm not too excited about a Celtics-Sixer rivalry.
I'm excited already, Jack.
Be excited about them. I'm going to watch the net drama unfold as the
Oh,
year
yeah.
goes along.
Yeah.
They're the soap opera team.
You are 100% right, but I'll tell you right now, I'm already excited, Jack. It just started, hockey and basketball, and football's getting all their coaching moves together, and free agency, and I mean everything's going on. So I can't wait for the season to start on NFL and have everything going at once, Jack. It'll be great. So anyway,
It's all happening.
So thanks a lot. Tune in tomorrow, same time, 8 to 10 a.m., and we'll have some big guests like Iceman John Scully, Mark Healy, and also one of our favorites, Carter C. covering the NHL. Thank you, folks. Have a great day.